Awesome. So the time is 9:37 and I open the Committee for Community Culture, Arts and Sport. Attendance today is Councillor Kunzelman, Councillor Madsen, Mayor Harding and Councillor Jonik. We have no apologies for today. Do we have any declarations of interest and any items on the agenda? That's a strong no. Moving on to item number 1, 2021 Ipswich Show Holiday. So this is a report concerning the recommendation received from the Ipswich Show Society for Council to make an application to the Office of Industrial Relations for the 2021 Ipswich Show Holiday to be held on Friday the 14th of May 2021. Does anyone wish to speak to a council officer about this? It's kind of an ongoing thing. So the recommendation we have here is that council accept the recommendation of the Ipswich Show Society and make an application to the Office of Industrial Relations for the Ipswich Show Holiday as follows. So the 14th of May as the Ipswich Annual Show, and as per the Show Society's correspondence. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Madsen, and seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Do we have any discussion?
If I may, Chair. Strongly support this recommendation, and note that our Ipswich Show Society and has been having shows for over 150 years in Ipswich, and obviously this year they were able to have the full thing. I think it was only the second time in its history that only a world war stopped it in the past. So let's hope that we move on from COVID and the community recovery, and we can have a really great show next year.
Hear, hear. Any further discussion? I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? The vote's unanimous. Moving on to item number 2, the Ipswich Australia Day Awards and Selection Panel. Would anyone in the committee like to speak to a council officer with regards to this item? No? Great. So we have 2 recommendations here, and I'll move A first, that the council receive and note the report summarising the annual daily Australia Day Awards. Do I have a mover for that specific recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman, and seconded by Councillor Madsen.
Yeah, we go.
No discussion. Take that one to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. And I propose a recommendation, that's recommendation C, so excluding B, that a selection panel made up of 5 members representing the broader Ipswich community. Sorry, Vicky, that a selection panel made up of 5 members representing the broader Ipswich community be established, and that the panel be jointly selected by the General Manager of Community, Culture and Economic Development and the Marketing and Promotions Manager in consultation with the Mayor and Councillors. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Jonik. So I now open up for any discussion on that particular recommendation.
I'm pretty happy with it that it'll be 5 members of the community and not the political class of Ipswich determining what good citizenship is. I'm at great pains nearly every day since being elected, because now I'm a member of the political class and I've begun to realise how woefully out of touch with the public we can be at times. It's very challenging. So yeah, I'm very supportive of this motion because I think it's important that the community gets a say in who their champions are, and that should be celebrated.
Yeah, I agree. And I think 5 is a pretty decent cross-section to encapsulate all of the different types of awards that you can get on the Australia Day awards. So I think that my recommendation to move in this way and exclude the mayor and councillors from the decision-making process, it allows for fair and just awards, and I think that it's one that the community can get behind, and that's why I propose this recommendation.
I may, Chair, we've had, I guess, a lot of discussions behind in briefings and stuff on this, because we really want something that is fair and it's not a your mates get up or anything like that. And we've had discussions as to who would be on that panel, such as previous award winners and others, and obviously making sure that people who are this is our highest award to the citizens of Ipswich, to make sure that it is seen with the prestige that the awards do actually have, so they are taken seriously. We also had, I guess, discussions amongst ourselves whether, as councils, do we review if there was any red flags, if there were any sort of names come up that sometimes we do come across confidential information. That is part of our job, that we do, and just to see if there are any red flags for any of the people that may be a finalist or a winner and things like that. So I guess we've had big discussions in the behind closed doors, I guess, and at briefings to how do we get this to be fair as well. So I think this recommendation will strike that balance, I think.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll select a wonderful spread of people to be on that selection panel.
Thank you, Chair.
Just a comment, Chair. This is a process that really needs to be seen to be fair and objective, and conducted with probity. So I'm believing that what we're planning will actually give us that. Thank you.
Thank you. So without further discussion, I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So moving on to item number 3, Ipswich Home Assist Seniors and Accessibility Assistance Scheme. Can I please have the relevant council officer to speak to this? Good morning.
Morning, Chair. Morning, councillors. Kat Matson, Branch Manager for Economic and Community Development. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this program. It's one of our proud achievements during the COVID episode. The Seniors and Accessibility Assistance Scheme was launched by the state government and delegated, if you like, to the region's Home Assist teams to manage. I'm going to say the demand for the scheme was far higher than anybody expected, and our Home Assist team did an amazing job in terms of fielding the number of inquiries that they received in the first few weeks before the calls were sent through to state to manage, and then securing funding for our local residents. As you can see in the report, the team set a target of securing $250,000 in funding for local clients, and they secured a total of $661,000. We received 184 funding applications, and 166 were approved. You'll see in the report that these funding applications made such a difference to some of our residents, people who had been living in extraordinary conditions, and when COVID hit, it just exacerbated those conditions. And so these grants were able to provide not just comfort, but actual livability services, whether it was replacing water pumps, whether it was putting in ramps. It's quite phenomenal. So incredible kudos to the Home Assist team, who managed an influx of calls that they'd never experienced before. And yeah, that's it. Incredible kudos to the team.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that the recommendation for this one is that we just receive and note the contents here. Do I have a move for the recommendation? Thank you. And Councillor Madsen, and a seconder, Councillor Johnnet. Thank you. Open that up for any discussion.
If I may, Chair, can I just say congratulations to the team there, but also thank the state government. I think this was a terrific initiative. It was obviously needed in our community. And if you read some of the examples, the anonymised examples here, helping some people who are very vulnerable in difficult situations. I just think it was fantastic that was able to be offered, and thank you to the team and the council and Home Assist for doing this program.
Yeah, wonderful outcome for everyone involved. Any further discussion? We'll take that one to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, Rosewood Library status update. I'd like to see the relevant council officer for that one.
Good morning, Chair. Morning, councillors. My name is Sam Chandler, so I am the Manager of Libraries and Customer Services. So this is just an update on the new library service. So at the time of writing the report, we had attracted 5,499 visitors to Rosewood and loaned over 6,000 items. And we had 299 new members, and that continues to grow. So we're averaging about 169 visitors per day and 205 loans per day. So the time that is most popular is after school, straight after school, all at the one time. So that's the most popular time, and Saturdays have also proven to be quite popular. So the Council Connect is averaging about 20 customers per week, and half of those are in relation to rates. So that's a service that is still quite new, but people are getting used to the fact that it's available. So the innovative technology in Makerspace is very popular, and in particular with young users. So that's proven to be very, very popular. Since opening, the attendance and loan activity is slightly above what we had expected, but overall it is very, very positively received by the local community.
I guess I just have one question. Is it difficult to, at times, maintain a COVID-safe environment with that influx after school?
With the small children, it is, but they bring their parents, so that makes it easier. With the older children, they are used to a COVID environment everywhere they go, so it is a little easier with sort of the 10 and up.
Yeah, and there's lots of different spaces there for them to go into, and the plan obviously encompasses all of that.
And they love the tree.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, isn't
Yes.
it? Any further questions?
I think this is the first time reporting here.
Yes,
You're
it
the
is.
council, Ms Chandler, so welcome
Yes,
to
thank you.
City
Thank
Council,
you.
and welcome to your community. A great report, and obviously a great facility. I'm just looking at the fact that it has been successful. Are there any policies or strategies that you see that council could be making to support you in what you're doing there, or you're happy with the current policy and strategies that are in place?
At this stage, being new,
Yep.
I really couldn't give you any information around things that we could improve around policy and strategy right now, but that is part of what I'm working through at this point in time.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
This is just another report to be received and the contents noted. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Madsen, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jonick. Any further discussion on this?
Through the chair, may I please ask a question of a Division 4 councillor about the Rosewood Library, if that's okay? What are you hearing on the ground about the library?
Nothing but
Councillor?
good things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very good.
Obviously there's a demand.
Yeah. There's some, if I may be fanciful,
Yes.
there's some emotional attachment to it already, is what I'm picking up.
Wow. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Any further discussion? Awesome, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So we have 5, the Rosewood Community Centre. And that's the motion put forward.
Thank you, Chair. I'd move that an options paper be prepared on the Rosewood Community Centre, considering its current and future use in relation to the needs of the surrounding community and including the council-owned land adjacent to the current facility at 19 School Street including the options for repair or replacement.
Do we have a move? Well, second, sorry, for that motion. Thank you, Mayor Harding. Well, I'll open that up for discussion. Is there anyone?
Just speaking to the motion, Chair, the Rosewood Community Centre works autonomously in the Rosewood community, provides high-value services, and is a meeting place for multiple local interests. This motion seeks to provide alternatives that take into account that the facility is beyond its useful life and overcrowded. This motion is directed at the continuation of the centre, in some other form perhaps, and seeks solutions to continued growth and to deal with the age and condition of the facility.
Any further discussion?
If I may ask a question, the CEO, if I could, it's probably a matter of process. I did notice that the attachment was confidential. It didn't seem to have confidential information in there. May I ask what? But I also noticed a notice of motion. Is there a reason why the supporting information is confidential? Because actually some interesting information in there. In particular, the population growth in Rosewood was, all the stuff from the ABS.
It was tagged as being confidential.
Is it because our internal processes, that's an internal briefing?
Mr. Poll may have a response.
Thank you.
Through the Chair. Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Ben Poll, General Manager, Community, Cultural and Economic Development. I think you're right. The content of the briefing note isn't particularly confidential. It was more just in the way that it was provided. So it was a informal presentation of information to the relevant councillors, and as such wasn't prepared for public view. But as you say, I don't think there's anything particularly concerning within the or risky within the content provided.
No, it's sort of there's interesting information. Would it be fair to say, Mr. Poll, with the sensitive part of the fact that council put forward a number of options, and therefore it could raise community expectations? Is that the reason why, as well, or is it more just the fact that our process is that we wouldn't put this out, or wouldn't publish this?
What we could do is potentially just re-template the content so that it is in the publicly accessible format, and the same content could be made available.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
My next question was going to be, how would we communicate this intention to the Rosewood community, specifically the board of the centre? So if we could discuss that later, that'd be good.
Certainly, and as part of the formation of the options paper would be consultation with those stakeholders.
It might be worth pointing out that we've endorsed a process for an overall community infrastructure plan, community facilities infrastructure plan. This would be a subset of that. They all don't move at the same speed, obviously, but it's clear that community facilities have been developed in this organisation without perhaps a coherent framework over a long period of time, and it would be appropriate to pull that together, identify our assets within a framework, and then begin to look at how we develop those assets within that framework, taking into account community need, growth, demographics, a whole range of issues.
Mr. Bob, may I ask, in the one of the options there that talked about a condition asset inspection, how often do we normally do those on the community facilities?
Don, would you like to comment?
Depending on the tenure agreement.
Probably because of live
Come on
streaming,
down.
if that's okay, Mr. Stewart.
So I'll defer to the relevant branch manager.
This is Don Stewart, Manager Community and Cultural Services. In answer to your question, ma'am, at the end of it depends on our tenure agreement in place. If it's a seasonal permit, we'll be inspecting the asset at the end of every season. In the event that the tenure agreement is a lease, the lease will obviously be inspected at the end of that term lease. But during the period of that lease, there is ongoing maintenance that will be required. We have the opportunity to inspect the asset at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
discussion? We'll take that to the vote. All those in favour?
So for discussion, I was going to mention something, if I may.
We were
We're
already
in
in discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
May I ask one other? I don't know if I beg your indulgence, Chair. I just want to read three lines from the report that's not publicly available yet, but should be. It says, noting that the terms of the population projection for Rosewood, the Queensland Government Statistician's Office indicate that Rosewood is one of the 10 largest growing statistical area 2 areas in Queensland, with a projected population of over 55,000 people by June 2041, which is a 300% increase. So I just thought it was quite, I hadn't read that before, and that was, I thought, quite interesting. I don't know if anyone else had any thoughts on that.
It goes to show they do deserve and definitely need that library.
It's through the chair, I think it's really worth noting that I think we have a couple of suburbs on that. Ipswich is definitely growing and growing very quickly. So yeah, including Rosewood, and it's good to see that the electrification of the rail line will get some heavier use over time. That's very good.
Awesome. Any further
I'll
discussion?
have to extend that library.
One thing at a time, Councillor Constable.
It's a budget discussion. Let's take that one to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. So we've got a late item on the agenda today, which is item number 6, which is the 2020 Christmas in Ipswich program. I'd like to invite the council to sit down and introduce the program.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Jo Jordan. I'm the City Events Manager here at Ipswich City Council. The report that you have in front of you is about the Christmas in Ipswich program. So COVID-19 has had a significant effect on our broader community. As most of you know, most of our major events have actually been cancelled due to the restrictions on mass gatherings, and that has really prevented Ipswich coming together to celebrate as a community. So Christmas is a time where families and the community would ordinarily come together en masse. But given that the restrictions on mass gatherings are predicted to stay in place well into next year, Council has made the move to develop an adapted program of events for Christmas in Ipswich that is compliant with the industry framework for COVID-safe events in Queensland that's been endorsed by Queensland Health. So the COVID-safe adapted format will actually protect council's risk exposure, but will also protect the community's risk exposure as well. So you'll see in front of you a high-level Christmas in Ipswich program has been presented to you as an attachment, and it briefly outlines, I suppose, the format adaptations. Key considerations is the ticketing for Christmas Wonderland and also the reformatting of the New Year's Eve celebrations. It is proposed to ticket Christmas Wonderland with a very low cost paid ticket. We have considered a free ticket for the community, but all of the research and also consultation as recently as yesterday with our local government working group with all event managers from 11 councils showed that there's up to a 40% dropout in free tickets because there is no perceived value of the ticket. So with such a, I'm going to say hot ticket for Christmas Wonderland, because we did have 27,000 people go through last year, and we have a capacity within the COVID-safe environment to get 8,000 through this year. We believe that that will put a value on the ticket and people will redeem them, and we will get the maximum number of people through to experience the benefit. In terms of New Year's Eve, we're looking at going to a very COVID-safe format at the Tivoli Drive-In. They're well set up to stage events, and their planning scheme allows them to stage a New Year's Eve event. So we'd look at 2 events, an early event for families with a movie, a leisure event with live band for, I suppose, old families. And key to that is we're liaising with Queensland Health to look at a number of fireworks displays across the region at relatively undisclosed locations, but at high points so they can be enjoyed by the full community. We'll also consolidate the New Year's Eve offering across the region, so probably for the first time trying to encourage people to celebrate COVID safe and celebrate locally. So the recommendations before you talk about endorsing that low cost ticketing of Christmas Wonderland with proceeds going to a local charity. That the General Manager be authorised to finalise the terms of that charity once appointed through an expression of interest, and also that we approve to move some of the existing New Year's Eve funding across to the Tivoli Drive-In to support them to stage their events.
Any questions?
Ms Jordan, thank you very much. I'm absolutely, when you briefed us on this, I was absolutely blown away with what you've been able to do creatively, noting COVID.
Thank you.
And Christmas and kids and families. Thank you for such a vast array of COVID-safe things. I know Santa on Tour is still in concept development. May I ask where that's at the moment?
It's actually subject to getting the right type of vehicle, but as of yesterday we have one option. It's actually quite difficult to find a double-decker red bus and other things that we've been looking for, but we definitely have a short list. So I would say that it is fair to say that we will get that across the line, but just at the time of that briefing we certainly hadn't got it across the line.
No, thank you. Thank you and your team for all the hard work there. And also with the briefings, we had a lot of discussion about the ticket price, as you know.
Yes.
And I guess, and I guess how we hit that perfect point to make, I guess, it's not a raising money issue, but it's about how do we make sure people who buy a ticket do attend. Was there a sweet spot when you spoke to other local governments about, because we are looking at $5 and per person, 15 per family? What was the sweet spot?
Yesterday I actually raised this with Logan City Council, and they've introduced $5 ticketing to some of their events. They find that that is actually a good price. I asked them about family tickets or household group tickets. They actually don't. They just have a straight $5. And, certainly since that briefing, we've had some internal discussions about trying to find that sweet spot. I think that if you consider that we had a lot of couples and families coming last year, that the $5 per person for a couple is, we think, quite affordable. If we maintained, say for example, a $10 ticket for a family, we think that what will happen is most people will just take the family ticket and maybe not use all of the tickets. Yes. But we were thinking that the $15 would be the recommended lowest price for 5. So essentially it works out $3 a person, which we think would be affordable. And that probably would return to one charity we were proposing, because there is a requirement for them to supply volunteers as part of that charity benefit, that based on, it's all based on how many family versus single tickets you sell, but it could be between $5,000 and $10,000 to go to a local charity.
I guess, Ms. Jordan, just one last one on the recommendation C for the Tivoli Drive-In. Obviously, council are sponsoring them for Christmas as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Was it around $18,000?
$15,000,
yep.
Yes.
And then the $20,000 for New Year's Eve. That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So that would be directly offsetting at our request the requirement to use their venue. We can take approximately 1,000 people at each of those events.
And I see for New Year's Eve, looking obviously at Tivoli, they're looking at doing a 6 p.m. and a 9:30 p.m. session, and then we're obviously looking at 9 o'clock fireworks at 2 elevated locations in Ipswich Central and Springfield. Is that still proceeding, or how's that going?
Yes, so we're scoping those at the moment. We're actually looking quite broadly across the community, but also determining whether or not Springfield will still stage their annual event that they do. That hasn't been determined yet, and generally across the board, the trend is at the moment is people aren't deciding about Christmas or New Year's Eve right now. So some of these decisions will come later than normal, but should Springfield proceed, then we were looking at another potential location. So we're sort of scoping right across the region.
We're getting more and more young families moving to Walloon and Rosewood, as we've just heard the previous. Is there any interest in either charity groups or church groups or community groups out there in doing something out Rosewood Walloon way at this stage?
Well, we certainly haven't, in relation to New Year's Eve.
Yeah, New Year's Eve.
So we haven't discounted Rosewood or Walloon as a location for those fireworks and that celebration. We're currently scoping. So if there was a direction that, to choose one of the more out-of-line regional parts of of Ipswich, if that's the right term, you know, in addition to Springfield and Ipswich Central, then that would certainly make sense. I think we probably, if Springfield didn't proceed, to have something at either location, also given the amount of families in that Springfield Ripley area. So, you know, certainly open for discussion. That was probably the priority.
I was going to ask about Ripley as well.
Yeah. So Springfield Ripley, I think
Yeah.
generally as a community they can come together in that one location, and they've shown that through. But what we are trying to do is make the fireworks as high as possible, so that encouraging people not to gather at the location, that's critical to getting it across the line with Queensland Health, which we still need to do.
Okay.
So we'll move on to recommendation A. And I might workshop a variation here, Vicky. That council endorse low-cost ticketing for Christmas Wonderland with proceeds going to local charity, selected through an expression of interest process. And that council be presented with costing options for further consideration before committing to the ticket price. Pricing
Options rather than costing options.
Pricing options rather.
So, Vicky, it should be council presented with pricing options.
Uh,
Down, see where you got costing options?
Oh yes.
And options is unnecessary at the end of
Yeah,
the
that
sentence.
is, yeah.
If
No.
committed to pricing. Yeah, that's right.
For further consideration in a workshop. Thank you, Vicky. Just noting that this might be time sensitive for the team to get the pricing out, so we wouldn't want it to come back to committee, so consideration in a future workshop before committing to pricing. Do we have a mover for that recommendation? Vicky? Seconder, sorry, I've moved it. So
Yeah,
seconding it,
second.
yes.
That we're only dealing with A.
That we're only dealing with a varied A. Okay, I'll open that for discussion.
Chair, I guess I was kind of happy with the previous one, because I was sort of happy to make a decision on that at the council meeting, so the teams can get on with it. But I'll work with this in discussing this.
Yeah, I guess-
You know, in briefings, I was a single mother myself for over 5 years, and I know how difficult things can be and how tight budgets are. So I'm wanting to keep that price down as low as possible, noting that all the money is going to a charity, not staying. It's not council are not keeping that money. So I was very interested to hear from Ms. Jordan talking about what's that sweet point to make sure that people do come along. And that 40% dropout rate, if it was free, kind of really surprised me. So I acknowledge that we need to get the fee right, and I guess I'd be interested to hear from residents before we make a decision on the next week or in the future, if they think that $5 a person and $15 a family is reasonable.
Yep.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just a recommendation, and I think that we need a little bit more time before we commit to an actual figure to send to council officers for promotion. My only concern, which is why I wanted to discuss it further in a possible workshop, was that, you know, what number constitutes a family, and, you know, at what point is $15 not enough money if you're bringing, you know, a family of 6, 10, you know, what does that look like? Do we need to have a person per dollar ratio, or, you know, a car full, for instance? Working through a few of those things.
Okay.
I love the idea of the $5 ticket. you know, 2 for 10 is very reasonable. The event is amazing, and for all of that money to go to charity as well, it's great, and it gives us an opportunity to invite those charities to come and promote themselves and potentially volunteer for us at the Wonderland as well in an exchange of services there. So, yeah, the only reason I would like to discuss this further in a possible very short workshop was that just getting the number of people who are allowed in that family ticket at the sweet spot.
Okay.
Any further discussion on that? I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? It's unanimous. So we have recommendation B, that the General Manager, Community, Cultural, Economic Development be authorised to finalise the terms of the agreement with the selected charity. And I might move this alongside recommendation C as well, that Council approve the sponsorship of the New Year's Eve events at Tivoli Drive-In to the maximum cash and in-kind value of $20,000. Do we have a seconder for those two? Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Do we have any discussion on this? Noting that, we'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. That's us. So I now close the meeting at 10:14 a.m.